Hello everybody, welcome to the Board of Education meeting, September 12th, 2016. I just need to take a moment to get through some housekeeping. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Acts, Chapter 231 PL 1975 announcement, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have notice and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the School Districts of the Chatham's Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place thereof posted in the Board Administrative Offices, sent to the clerks of the borough and the township, the Library of the Chathams, the Chatham Courier, the Daily Record, and the Star Ledger. Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind doing roll call?
Sure. Mr. Gilfield.
Here.
Mr. Arner.
Here.
Ms. Chigarelli.
Here.
Ms. Clark.
Here.
Ms. Connors. Ms. Cronin. Mr. Franz.
Here.
Ms. King.
Here.
And Ms. Webb.
Here.
7 present and a count.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm sorry, before we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, I would just like to take a moment to reflect on the events 15 years ago yesterday of 9/11, where nearly 3,000 citizens and folks lost their lives, and including 13 citizens from here in Chatham. So if we could just take a moment right before a Pledge of Allegiance just to reflect and think about 9/11 and the events and those that we've lost. Thank you. If everybody could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be great. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I don't have any opening comments other than welcome, and I'm happy to see the room so crowded. We're going to move right over to the superintendent's report. Dr. LaSousa.
Thank you very much, Ms. Weber. Welcome back, everyone, officially, now that the school year has begun. I have the honor of beginning the meeting with a commendation for a student of ours who performed a service project at one of our schools, his alma mater, back when he was 9 years old. So I'm going to ask, actually, our newest principal in the district, Chris Dudlow, to come up to the microphone and maybe say a few words about Mr. Jack Weber's project over at the Washington Avenue School.
Do I have to sign in? Or? Good evening, everyone.
You're on video.
Okay, that's good. I couldn't let too long pass before taking the time to really come and say a few words about Jack and the amazing job that he did over at Washington Avenue School. As you know, I just began a few months ago, and to have someone knock on my door a few days in and say that they'd like to come and help make the school a more beautiful environment is really such a wonderful feeling. And he really dedicated a lot of time and effort into re-beautifying the outside of Washington Ave. I have a letter here that I wrote for him as a commendation, if I may read it aloud. Dear Jack, on behalf of the students, staff, families, and community of the Washington Avenue School, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to you for all the incredible work you did at WAS this summer. I've received several compliments about the way the front of the school looks, and especially about the incredible bench you built. I enjoy looking at the work you did every morning when I come into WAS, as well as from my office window. Not a day passes when I look out and don't see someone sitting down to relax on it, waiting to drop off or pick up a student. I've even observed people in the community resting on it after school hours while they walk through the neighborhood. The mulching and the timbers around the school sign look beautiful and create a wonderful greeting to everyone who visits. There were several families taking first day of school photos by it over the past several days. In addition, the cleanup of the area by the staff parking has greatly improved through your efforts, and the new trees are taking root in the area as well. I commend you and thank you for your dedication toward your Eagle Scout service project and for all of the time and effort you spent on it this summer here at Washington Avenue Elementary School. I look forward to congratulating you on your next accomplishment, which I am sure will be earning your Eagle Scout rank. Sincerely, Christine Dudlow. Jack, congratulations.
Wow.
Thank you, Jack. Certificate. Thank you. Appreciation for you. And I don't know if anyone would like a photo.
Belly up to
Are
the
your
mic.
parents here?
We're not done.
Get in there, Mama.
Get in there.
Come on, Jill. Get in there.
All right. Thank you very much.
Hey, Jack.
Joe.
Well done, well done.
Step up to the mic. We're not done.
Thank you for the certificate and the recognition. I would just like to thank Ms. Stedlow and also Ms. Quigley, who I started with, and they were really helpful. They gave me a project. They gave me something to actually work on that's going to help the school. It's going to make it more beautiful, and like she said, like, I'm happy that people are using like the bench, and they like what I did around the school sign and the mulching adjacent to the exit of the parking lot. My volunteers and I spent over 200 hours working on the project, so thank you to them, of course, and I'm very happy that Ms. Studlow and Washington Avenue School likes it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jack, I'm just curious, is there any kind of requirement before you get to Eagle that would require you to clean your room?
No.
None. Wow, that's a shame. That's unfortunate. Well, thank you, Jack, for your hard work. I appreciate it. Does anybody have any comments or questions for the Eagle Scout? Oh, Mr. Franz has some questions. Excellent.
I don't have a question. I just did want to say thanks on behalf of the board, and no matter what she says, there's someone up here who's very proud of you. So.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. Dr. LaSousa, you're going to continue on?
Yes, I will.
Jack, you have homework, right?
Yes, you're certainly free to go, Jack and Ms. Dudlow and the rest.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Bye, Bob.
Thank you, Ms. Dudlow. Thank you.
In addition to getting off on a good foot at Washington Avenue School, I think all of our schools overall have had a pretty good opening. They're never perfect, but overall, students seem to be happy and where they're supposed to be. Our enrollment right now is at about 42, not about, it's at 4213, but we have a handful of students who we know have not been to school yet. We believe they've moved out of state, but their parents didn't complete the withdrawal paperwork. So after 10 days, we begin a disenrollment process. So probably by the next meeting, we'll have a firmer handle on the exact enrollment, probably about 4,200 students, which still is the largest enrollment to date. And then I also wanted to just share with the board tonight in a quick, brief 10-minute presentation, just some of what we started to focus on as a staff when the whole staff joined us back on September 1st and 2nd. Every year I give a presentation and talk with everyone in the district, all the teachers, about our areas of focus and our points of emphasis as we move into the school year. And I haven't shared that at a board meeting in recent years, but I thought I'd do that this time around, because a lot of what we're looking at and a lot of the initiatives, of course, we end up discussing here and working on either in our committees or in the public meetings. So I'm just going to light up the projector and again take about 10 minutes just to share with you what I shared with teachers on the first day.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Before you start that, could you just,
Yeah, go ahead.
you had sent out the email about the pertussis at the high school?
Yes, thank you.
Could you kind of address that?
Sure. So at about 1 o'clock this afternoon, I was notified by our lead school nurse that the Madison Health Department had contacted our nurse at the high school, Carol Pace, to let her know that there had been a positive test for a student of ours who's fully recovered and has been in school, who had come up positive for pertussis. So we did what we did the last time this happened, and I think the last time it occurred was maybe the year before I became superintendent, or a couple years before that, and we had a case or two at Washington Avenue School, I believe. So we sent out the letter that was suggested to us by the health department, as well as a frequently asked questions, and we're hopeful that there was very little risk of exposure in school, but we wanted to just be forthcoming and provide the information to the parents. All right, so let me just shift locations. And so hopefully you can kind of see that, and I'll just park myself here if it's okay with Tom. So as I said, when teachers return, I always try to talk with them about what we're going to be looking at our areas of emphasis and hopefully give them something to think about as we move into the school year. So this time round, I started off with this slide right here to welcome everyone back and just kind of ask the question, where are we? And what this is right here are about 10,000 bubbles. And it comes from an infographic that was in the New York Times in the spring. The New York Times picked up a study by several researchers that looked at socioeconomic status and student achievement and the relationship between a parent's socioeconomic status and then the achievement in a school district at grade 6. So the researchers took standardized tests in every school district in the United States that has a 6th grade, and then took that statewide data from each state and somehow graphed it to sort of show where the kids in that district were, and then aligned that or plotted it on a graph where the x-axis had to do with the wealth of the parents. So the main, I think, kind of point of this study or this graph was to show that kids who are in poor districts end up behind grade level by the time they get to grade 6. So for example, in Camden, the average test score shows that Camden students are about 2.5 years behind grade level by the time they get to 6th grade. So they're really kind of behind the 8 ball early on by the time they're 12 years old. For example, another district in New Jersey that I found closest to the average, or it was the one the closest to the average I could find was Carteret. So they're pretty much an average district for the United States. Couldn't help but look at Beverly Hills since I was such a 90210 fan growing up. And then there's Chatham. At the edge of the chart, if you will. So, I brought this up to the staff to kind of say, what does that mean? What are the implications for being up in that red star at such a point of high achievement and good resources and so forth? And what does it mean for our kids? What does it mean for parents? What does it mean for us, as a professional staff? And, to ask similar questions, what does it mean if you're a Chatham kid who's just, an average performer nationally? Or what if you're way above the Chatham average? Or what if you're way below the national average? And these are the questions we kind of have to think about all the time when we're working with learners in our classrooms that span a big spectrum. They're not all in that tiny red bubble. That's just the average. So I segued from there to talk about our professional development, our professional work. When students aren't in the buildings, or even when they're in the buildings and we have an hour in the middle of the day where we have common planning time or we have a faculty meeting, so on and so forth, there are primarily, from my point of view, 3 areas of focus that we've been gearing all of our work around. So one is, as you all know, of course, is wellness and talking about student wellness related issues. There's always curriculum and instruction. That has to do with the content. It has to do with how we teach, what we teach, and getting kids to be prepared. In the old days, they called that the 3 R's, but now it's curriculum and instruction. And then naturally, just the way the world is changing on a daily basis, technology use and how we integrate technology and work with technology is a place where we have spent a lot of time professionally. And my thinking is that curriculum and instruction has to do with preparation and preparing kids. Wellness, of course, has to do with a student's well-being and being healthy and well and safe. And technology has to do with being connected. And what we're really seeking, I think, in many cases, is a balance of all of those 3 areas. We want our kids to be prepared, and we want them to be connected and leverage technology, but we want them to do that in a way that is sustainable and healthful long term. And if you can get to balance, kids will be well prepared, they'll be well, and they'll be connected, and our aim is well-beings. But that, that can be hard sometimes, or complicated at least, when you're up there at the edge of the world. So I then reviewed with staff, and I'll touch on it here, just that we're going to continue this expansion of wellness-related activities and wellness-related discussions, including around mindfulness. We're going to continue to try to diversify the kinds of furniture that's in our classrooms, because there's a lot of evidence that having more flexible accommodations for students is good, not just for learning, but also for their well-being overall. The Chatham Education Foundation and the PTOs have been terrific in supporting us in that regard. And we have to keep up the conversations that we're having about how our practices are affecting students, and the level of and amount of work that they have, the amount of sleep that they're getting, the amount of stress that they have, et cetera. And those are difficult conversations, and there are no easy answers all the time. And I kind of encouraged our staff to think about that critically, and also think about how they are when it comes to some of these issues, and their own wellness and their own thoughtfulness with respect to balance. For two reasons. The first is, ideally, our staff members should serve as models for kids. Our teachers want to model productive habits for the students that they work with, and also because a more balanced staff member is going to probably be a more balanced and more effective teacher, and that means kids will learn more and do better. So on the staff side, it's a similar thing. We've been initiating with our staff wellness-related activities and wellness-related exercises for them, not just for students. I talked with them a little bit about thinking more critically about the use of email, and this is something that our policy committee is going to talk about in the coming months. But our email practices, how we communicate with students, whether we have proper parameters or limitations on how we interact with students via email. And then I got into something called tolerance of ambiguity, which I'll get to in a second. But I suggested for some of our staff that if they needed to disconnect at times in the evening, that they could put some kind of an automatic response on their email, and they could feel supported by me for doing so. I gave them two options, and I sent this out after the presentation for them to consider. So if you can't see from where you're sitting, it just says, thank you for, imagine someone getting an email at 6 o'clock at night. The automated response might read, thank you for reaching out to me. Most of my time during the school day is spent with students. In the evening, I typically disconnect from work email. I will respond to you as soon as I am able, either during a free period or tomorrow. I look forward to connecting with you. So just the idea of trying to model to students that they shouldn't feel the compulsion to and the obligation to check their phones all of the time for an email that might come from a teacher. We need to model some of that behavior for kids. And then I talked a little bit about tolerance of ambiguity. And I first heard this, I had never heard of this expression or term, but about 8 or 9 years ago, I was at some conference someplace, and a person cited tolerance of ambiguity as being the best predictor for a student's success in, I believe it was geometry. Their tolerance for ambiguity when they were in 5th grade was a strong predictor of how well they did in geometry in high school. And I had never heard that. I haven't found the study, so I don't even know if it's true, but it has to do with being comfortable with the unknown or uncertainty, and not, being comfortable with it, being comfortable with that which is uncertain. And a greater degree of tolerance of ambiguity is correlated to greater creativity, more efficient second language acquisition, and math skills like statistical thinking. So it's kind of interesting. It's almost in some ways counterintuitive to think that uncertainty would bring you better math ability, but in fact, it does. So I asked them to kind of consider how well do they deal with ambiguity as staff members. How well do we deal with uncertainty? If our students aren't maybe progressing at the rate that we hope that they should, or if something in our own routine or our day is not certain or is disrupted and we're not really sure what the outcome is going to be, how well do we deal with that? Do we get very anxious? Do we become worried and short-tempered? Because all of that filters down to students. And if we know tolerance for ambiguity is good for them, we have to kind of try to build some of that in ourselves. So I didn't talk about this with the staff, but I'm going to shift here just very quickly because this was in the news recently, the New Jersey Monthly ranking. I kind of think that school rankings erode tolerance for ambiguity and have a potentially negative impact on the work that we do, and some of what I just discussed in the first 10 slides. And I'm just going to mention two metrics that came out of those school rankings that are, I think, problematic. So the first one is the AP participation rate. And I don't want to get into too much detail here, but I'll tell you that the top 3 schools in that New Jersey Monthly ranking were Princeton, then Chatham, then Montgomery in terms of AP participation rate. And the article in the New Jersey Monthly magazine stated specifically that the AP participation rate is the percentage of juniors and seniors who take an AP course. And the reason that was the language in the article is that on the New Jersey Department of Education school performance reports, it says that. The table below presents the proportion of unique students. That means that if a student takes 4 AP tests, they're only counted once. Unique students enrolled in at least 11th and 12th grade and the AP or IB course that he or she took. Except that there's a footnote at the bottom. And the footnote is students who are in an AP course but not in 11th and 12th grade still count in the numerator to come up with this calculation. So it says 97.2% of our students were in an AP course and 91% of them took an AP test. And if you just read the top paragraph, it makes you think, well, 97% of our 11th and 12th graders are in an AP course. But when you take into account the footnote, in reality, in this last school year that just closed, less than 2/3 of our seniors took an AP course, about half of our juniors, and then this 40% is what got shoved into the numerator to make it appear that the percentage was actually almost everyone in the school. The New Jersey Monthly was based on 14-15. I just took the most recent data, but it's the same kind of thing. So it's a little bit misleading. And we can get into AP participation rate and why it's very positive that our students feel comfortable taking rigorous coursework and why our course catalog has grown and expanded, and we should be proud of that. But at the same time, it's not good, I don't think, to have a takeaway from the New Jersey Monthly ranking that every kid should take an AP course. AP coursework might not be appropriate for every student, and there are students who might be capable of AP coursework that might just become overrun or overwhelmed or overburdened by the rigor of it, so it might not be appropriate in those circumstances either. The point being that the rankings really try to take something that's more complex and warrants discussion and simplify it into something that's easily digestible and sortable. Another note, and I'm just going to raise this because at some point this is going to, well, it mattered for some of the schools on the list that weren't up in the upper echelon, but the another area of academic performance in the rankings is the percentage of kids who take the SAT who score 1550 or higher. And the reason that I find this to be a dubious metric is that more and more kids are not taking the SAT. In the United States, more kids take the ACT than the SAT, and that's been the trend line at CHS. So for us, we had 82% of kids take SAT. We had 68% take the ACT. So if you look at, interestingly, if you look at statewide, we're very close on the SAT. We're like close to the average. And New Jersey Monthly only used that SAT number, 1550, in the ranking. The ACT, though, our numbers keep going up. There's a bigger difference between the state and communities like ours. And there are plenty of kids right now who might be very high-performing kids who skip the SAT but take the ACT. So it's really just, it's not a fair way to compare schools unless you use a metric from both of them. And in the rankings, there was only one metric used. Again, kind of makes it difficult to compare. So back to the tolerance for ambiguity. One of my, points to the staff was, how well do you tolerate ambiguity when you're here? In some ways, the school rankings, and in some ways, everything that all the publicity about the district, it's almost designed to reduce ambiguity, right? I mean, if you're going to invest in a home in one of our communities, Chatham Borough or Chatham Township, your hope is that the schools are going to prepare your kids well, and that the outcome is going to, wind up here, because that's what the expectation is, and that's what we all are pushing toward. But when a student maybe isn't performing right up there, or a student doesn't take the same path as all the other students, as staff members and/or as parents, how do we kind of work through that and make sure that that kid still feels supported and feels good about what she or he is doing? That's a real important part of our work, beyond just pushing up AP participation rates or SAT takers who score 1550. So my final message to the staff was try to get more balanced as the year goes on, and work with your students to help them find their balance, and don't ignore your own balance. And if we're all kind of working just incrementally toward that goal, it'll end up being a good year by the time we hit June 20th or whenever the last day is. So that was it in a nutshell on the opening day. Happy to take any questions.
That was opening day? Oof.
That was the first half hour for our teachers.
That was the first half hour.
Yeah. Then they got the real work.
Then they got down to it.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a lot to think about.
And that's my report. I don't have anything else beyond that.
Nothing on that. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. LaSousa, if they're not exhausted? From the scattergram?
I'll pay Mike a compliment.
Yeah.
Culture, and it's very hard for large organizations to take on culture, and when they do, it always comes from the top. So to see you taking a proactive role in trying to create a culture for the school district, for the staff, so that everyone has a common goal, but it's not just a machine churning out numbers, but a much more humanistic approach, and to see that come from the top is something I certainly appreciate as a board member witnessing.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. LaSousa. Moving on to the business administrator's report.
Just a very quick construction update. At both Lafayette and Southern, all the work is completed. All of the necessary building inspections are scheduled for tomorrow and Wednesday. So we're very hopeful that as of Wednesday, we will receive at the minimum a temporary certificate of occupancy. So then the schools can start using all 4 of the restrooms. Once that occurs, the architect will do his inspection of the 4 bathrooms and prepare the punch list if necessary for the contractor. Southern Boulevard on the ESA project, the contractor continues to work on the boiler, and I spoke to the principal, and if he didn't know, if he wasn't told that the contractors were in the building, he said he wouldn't even notice. So he said they're like church mice, not even bothering or having any interference or making any noise to disrupt any of the activity at the school.
Excellent.
At the Washington driveway and parking lot, I noticed, reported last time that the work has been finished. The neighbors to be installing fence and shrubs. According to the borough engineer, the surveyors should be out this week to stake and mark the property lines. So that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. DeCola? Nope. Very good. Thank you, Peter. Moving on to personnel, Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Oh, you just met.
Personnel just met prior to this meeting. We had a brief update on some insights at the counseling office at Chatham High School. We also discussed open enrollment for all staff and employees. currently through November 1st to reevaluate benefits if they wish. We also had an update on the software in the personnel department, the usage of software programs and data entry for that. And the personnel is carefully watching breakage in the district for current and future retirements this year. That's it. That's what we discussed.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions? Moving on. Curriculum, Ms. Kenny?
We have not met since our last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Finance and facilities, Mr. Gilfillan?
We have not met since our last meeting. We meet on Wednesday, right?
Tomorrow night,
Tomorrow?
8 p.m.
After
at the
Milton.
middle school at Running.
There was several emails on it. There was some ambiguity that we were embracing.
Yes.
Some of us tolerated it more than others. It was a test.
Wow.
Just trying to work it in.
Well done. Let's see my calendar's clean.
I can make it if you can't.
I'll be there.
Oh, okay, very good.
It's at CMS, correct?
Yes.
The middle school,
In the media center.
directly after the referendum.
So approximately 7:45, 8 o'clock.
Okay, perfect. Very good. And the referendum session starts at 7, correct?
Yes.
At the media center, the middle school. Okay, sorry, Mr. Franz. Policy?
We have not met since the last meeting. Next one is October 10th.
Okay, great, thank you. Chatham Borough, Mr. Connors is not here. Ms. Clark for the township?
Yes, just to, there's a suicide prevention walk on September 24th. The township is sponsoring that to heighten awareness and conversations about mental health issues, and Ms. Weber will be walking and representing us, so thank you for doing that.
Fantastic, thank you. And if you have any questions, Mayor Ritter has put up a link on the website in the township, and in the borough, Councilman Resto is the contact person in the borough. If you have any additional questions that you'd like to ask, or you can find information on either website. But for a personal contact, Mayor Ritter in the township and Councilman Resto in the borough. Moving on to athletic boosters. Mr. Connors is not here, but the first athletic boosters meeting is tomorrow night at the Media Center, 7 o'clock at the Chatham High School. They meet the first Tuesday of every month at the library at the high school, and they support the high school athletic program. Music and theater boosters, I'm going to take that one. So the marching band had a very successful band camp between August 22nd and August 31st. The band learned the entire field drill, the movements throughout the performance, and the students came to camp already with their music already learned and nearly memorized, so it allows them to just go through the movements and marked off on the actual field. The band has already performed at the first Chatham football game, and it's very excited to begin their competitive season. They're scheduled on Saturday, the 24th, at Roxbury High for their first competition. The first fall production at the high school is going to be You Can't Take It With You, so please mark your calendars for November 18th and 19th. And the Chatham Middle School production will be February 2nd and through the 4th, and they're going to do the junior version of the Rodgers and Hammerstein Sound of Music. Ooh, a crowd pleaser. Well, get your tickets early because that venue books up. And the Chatham High School Music Department is very excited and thankful to have the support of the Board of Ed. We discussed this last week, so nobody acts surprised, about the upcoming trip to Orlando, Florida in May of 2017. The students just learned about the trip September 6th on their first day back, and they've already begun their fundraising in order to offset the cost of that trip. And just a reminder that the Chatham Music Theater Boosters is now the Chatham Performing Arts Boosters. And they welcome new members, and they meet the first Wednesday of every month. And the first meeting is going to be Wednesday, October 5th at 7 p.m. in the Lafayette Teachers Lounge, which is directly across from the cafeteria at Lafayette School. No questions? Excellent. The Chatham Education Foundation, Ms. Kenny?
Yes. The fourth annual trivia night will take place on Saturday, November 5th. Team registration begins on October 6th. So mark your calendars, because in the last few years we've had a Board of Ed table, so would like to get a straw poll of folks to join in on the festivities.
Excellent, thank you. Hopefully we'll have a better showing. Recreation, Mr. Gilfillan?
Nothing to report. We meet again on October the 4th as of right now.
October the 4th. On the recreation question, Peter, I just have a quick question. Something came up this weekend at the football rec games. How many people?
Can talk about it afterwards.
I just want to know how many people can be in the. What do you mean afterwards?
I was gonna. I have
Oh,
this
talk to
question,
Peter?
yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna ask the same questions.
I just have one. You're all dying to know now, aren't you? The press box, there was some discrepancy over how many folks, students or adults, or you want in the press box working the,
We try to, I mean, the press box isn't a very large space, so we try to keep it, it's usually no more than 3 people.
Okay.
Just a matter of, so there's space and everybody has a little bit of elbow room.
okay, so 3 people to be safe? Okay. Very good. And apparently Matt's going to talk to you after.
Yes.
PTO District Cabinet meeting? Kim, I'm sorry, did they meet?
We did meet on the second day of school. Primary topic of conversation was the referendum and working through the approval process for volunteers for the after-school enrichment activities.
Okay.
Just following up, did you get a sense of any feedback about the referendum from the PTOs, or?
Everyone,
Temperature.
of course, was very supportive, and I was at the Lafayette Avenue School PTO meeting the next day, which had probably 50 or so, maybe even more than that, people, and that went very well. And next week, I guess it is, I can't keep track, maybe we're going to all the PTO meetings, or many of them in the next couple of weeks. So we'll make the rounds and I'll report on the feedback.
Great, thank you.
And some of the back-to-school nights as well.
And the back-to-school nights.
Those that are
There are
in front
2
of-
this week, Wednesday, Thursday.
Wednesday and Thursday, back-to-school nights. Excellent. Any other questions on the PTO? I could cover the referendum again a little bit. I'd like to make a motion to pass the minutes of the public meeting for August 29th.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And 2 abstentions? 3 abstentions.
I was here.
Oh, sorry. That was here. I thought you were raising your hand on the abstention.
I'm saying aye.
So it passes 6-0 to.
Yes, perfect, thank you. We have our first opportunity for public commentary. I see the public is all sitting on this side, but the microphone is on this side, so you're going to have to
Good thing it's not a vote.
scooch back over to this side. So if you wouldn't mind, if who's ever going to make a public comment, if they could just sign in, introduce yourself, where you live, that would be great. If you don't feel compelled at this time, there's another opportunity at the end of the meeting for a second public commentary. I'll try and stall a little bit longer to give people time to get across the room. No? All right, seeing none, I'm going to move on, but again, you have a second opportunity. Oh, sorry,
Just figured I'd run up here. Did you guys ever say anything, update on people playing sports on Sunday at Columbia Field and stuff like that? Has anything been resolved for that?
it seems to have, there have been no other incidents. The policy group will go back and tighten up the policy, but I've not heard of any. Have you, Dr. LaSousa? Or
No, I think Peter spoke with someone, right?
Issues with Sunday.
There was just Sunday, though.
No.
Going back from a few weeks ago, when we were trying to limit the unauthorized use at either Haasfield or Cougar from the, what we've termed the soccer nomads, who start approximately between 7:30 and 8 in the morning. Ms. Weber was able to get a phone number for one person. I actually spoke to him, and he said an email went out, told them that they have to stop playing. Since then, I haven't received any complaints, which now includes Labor Day weekend and last weekend. And I know that recreational football was at Cougar Field on Sunday, and they did not, they started approximately 10:30, 11 a.m., and they did not acknowledge that there was someone on the field prior to them. So
Was it away from summer?
I don't know exactly where they were from. They wouldn't fess up to where they were from.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Excellent, thank you. I haven't seen anybody on the...
Hi,
Hi, Jane. Could you just introduce yourself?
Jane Devlin, Chatham Township. Well, clearly we all realize education is now going beyond reading, writing, arithmetic, and incorporates the psychological, emotional, and moral development of the individual. And it's those areas which shape us and hardly arguably are what's pertinent in life. No one ever asked me what was my grade point average or my SAT score, but you can be certain I use my moral and spiritual education virtually every day. So as this school year starts, I applaud our focus on the whole child in the school district of the Chathams. Clearly positive measures are already in the works, as outlined by the superintendent's letter and tonight's presentation. As a non-board member, I would like to echo the compliments Mr. Ardnick made to Dr. LaSousa. I'd like to suggest this PowerPoint presentation tonight be made to parents, maybe at an assembly or at PTO, similar to when Dr. LaSousa presents a small PowerPoint at budget time. And now back to my points for tonight. I did notice on the school calendar that there was some no homework blackout dates, and that's a great start. But that shouldn't be the end-all, hopefully. Addressing homework should be an ongoing matter. But tonight I'm here to pose another strategy that maybe we could incorporate in school to promote well-being and stress, lessen stress. Yet another way we could help students be more self-aware, in tune, in touch to themselves and others. How impossible would it be to have a class or two on some days in the fall or spring outdoors? In K through 5, that might be a library or reading class or even a science class. And maybe in middle school or high school, it can be a health class or an English literature class, something that lends itself to being outdoors and lends itself to dialogue versus just technology. As a community member, I advocate for a look at all the different and creative ways we can balance being a high-performing school district, churning out high achievers, which yay, I'm proud of, while still safeguarding mental health of a population already vulnerable by the very fact they are tweens and adolescents. Nature, the outdoors, is soothing, healing, and may encourage unplugging from devices and may foster enhanced interactions, which is why I hope the feasibility of outdoor classrooms occasionally can be explored. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane, I appreciate it. Thank you for your comments. Welcome back.
I'll just say thank you for your kind words, Ms. Devlin, and outdoor classrooms are something that we are exploring. We have one at one school, and we're thinking about one at another school, and we certainly encourage our teachers to go outdoors if their lesson lends itself to that.
Excellent. Thank you. I just want to point out that it's a continued focus of balance and well-being. It's not that we just started it September 6th. It's a continued...
I agree.
Okay.
It's continued and enhanced moving.
Yeah.
So if I didn't express that correctly, thank you for pointing that out, because
clarify that
I definitely agree with that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jane. We're going to move on to our regular agenda. Again, there's a second opportunity probably very shortly because it's a short agenda. So moving on to personnel, Ms. Clark.
Yeah, I move action items A1 through A14 for vote.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Want to wish Carla Webb congratulations on her retirement.
Another lucky duck. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. LaSousa or Ms. Grant on the personnel items? Beth loves questions. No, seeing none. And if it appears that we're rushing through, we received these packets as well as the rest of the town on Friday night, so we have the weekend to read over them. They're posted Friday afternoon. Seeing none, Mr. DeQuilla, do you mind?
Sure. Agenda items A1 through A14. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnick?
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mrs. Cronin? Yes. Mr. Franz?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items pass 8-0.
Fantastic, thank you, Peter. Moving on to finance and facilities, Mr. Gilfillan.
Just like to move action item B1 through 14 on your regular agenda.
I'll second.
Yeah. Sad. Saving it up for Christmas.
It's coming.
It's coming, it's coming. Any questions for Peter or Matt or Dr. LaSousa on the finance or facility items? Nope, seeing none. Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind?
Agenda items B1 through B14. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnick?
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin?
Yes.
Mr. Franz?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items pass 8-0.
Excellent, thank you very much. On to curriculum for the,
Yes, I'd like to move action items C1 and C2 for vote.
A second.
excellent. It's like 4 meetings in a row, no HIB incidents. Not that anybody's counting.
Well, it wasn't in school.
Summer counts.
Okay.
Don't say that.
I know. Sorry. Any questions on curriculum for Ms. Chase or Dr. LaSousa? No. Seeing none, Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind?
Agenda items C1 and C2. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnick?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin?
Yes.
Mr. Franz?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items pass 8-0.
Fantastic, thank you. Moving on to policy, Mr. Franz?
I look to move agenda item D1.
I'll second.
Any questions on the substance abuse or passive breath alcohol sensor device modifications? We talked about it a little bit briefly last meeting as well. Any additional questions on those two policies? The modifications to those two policies? Excellent. Seeing none, Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind?
Agenda item D1. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnick?
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin?
Yes.
Mr. Franz?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda item D1 passes 8-0.
Excellent, thank you. Moving on to board business, I would like to just lead off with the referendum discussion. We all received, or sent out to the residents, was a save the date for the vote of September 27th. Everybody in the town, borough, and township should have received this. And then a newsletter will be going out probably in the next day or so, Dr. LaSousa. It's a little bit bigger than the card, but it'll look something like this. Sent out also to each of the residents, and this is much more detailed on each of the 6 projects that are being voted on September 27th. It's a Tuesday. And just to remind everybody, the polling times are from 7 a.m. in the morning until 9 p.m. in the evening, so hopefully that will work with everybody's schedule. You know, I know 7 o'clock is a little bit early because I'm on a train by then, but certainly I can work my schedule to get home by 9 o'clock. If not, there's absentee ballots. Is it too late for the absentee ballots? No?
No, we just posted a link to absentee ballots on the website today. We have absentee ballots here.
There's some on
and
the table in the hall.
There's some out
at
there,
the
and
borough
they're
hall.
due 1 week prior to the election,
Okay.
unless you go in person to the county clerk's office and apply for a mail-in ballot in person. But if you send it via mail, it's due 1 week ahead of time.
It has to be received 1 week. It can't be postmarked. It has to be received.
But now, is this like the process used to be, you have to submit the form to get the ballot?
Yes, you have to submit an
Right.
application to then receive the absentee ballot. That's correct. They haven't changed that process. So again, just to be on the lookout, probably this week, end of this week, it's a very detailed on each project. And just to remind folks, it's 6 separate projects. One is not contingent on the other, and each can be voted up or down individually with no ramification on the one before it or the one after it. So 6 individual projects, yes, no, they stand alone, they pass, they fail on their own merits. Did I miss anything, Matt? No? Any additional questions? So please, again, go out and vote. Typically on any voting election, it's a fairly low turnout. If we can get the turnout higher, double digits would be lovely. It would just be a shame if 7% of the folks in town decide what's happening for the rest of the town. So regardless of how you vote, please just go out and vote. At least it'll be the majority making the decision. So please Encourage your neighbors, your friends, your family, please just go out and vote. September 27th, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. The borough residents vote at the Chatham Middle School. The township residents vote at the high school in the C Gym. I'm told by Mr. D'Aquila that parking will be blocked off and available and not an issue, correct, Peter? Correct. It'll be quite evident where voters should park. Perfect, thank you. I didn't have any additional board business. Does anybody else have something they'd like to bring up? Mr. Franz?
I just wanted to say, I think the 6 items, I really like how it sets up. I think we did listen to what happened a couple years back, and I think we're trying to recognize that and focus on what are the real needs here. The one item that people, I hope, get, but I just wanted to make clear, is the Milton Avenue classrooms. It's not, don't think, oh, well, they're getting 4 classrooms, I'm in Washington. What benefit am I going to see from that? By opening up those classrooms at Milton or adding those classrooms, you're helping the whole district at the elementary school level. So don't, I hope you look at it that way rather than, oh, I don't like those people in the Milton district. So, if we could all rise above that. So, but yeah, I'm actually excited about this. So let's see what we got.
Yep. So last couple weeks, Ms. Clark?
I feel like I have to do a plug for the roofing projects because I feel like we will never, ever get ahead of these projects if we cannot repair them adequately. And I feel like we have an opportunity now to do the right thing. And I feel like each year when we look at those capital improvements, we always have a roof or many of them that are in need of repair. And we're always having to patch them and spend money where if we can just make the investment to do the full repair and get more life out of them, I think it would be the right thing to do for our schools in our town right now.
Thank you. And previous boards and previous administrations, obviously, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that a roof is going to give out in 10, 12, 15 years. But each time that we wanted to do a major roof repair, the consensus was that we needed to keep our enrollment down, and therefore we built another addition at one of the schools. So over the last 10 years, we've built additions at the high school with no referendum. That was built, taken right out of the capital budget. So again, people are like, well, you have to plan for that. We did. Unfortunately, our enrollment has increased so dramatically that the funds that were set aside to do some of these capital improvements went to classroom space in order to keep the enrollment at an optimal level, or at least as best we can given the space that we have. Does anybody else have any comments or questions, either on the referendum or any other board business? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Clark.
Can you comment, Mike, about the enrollment at Southern right now, and how are those class sizes looking? Are we stable? Are we, because I feel like it's big, obviously, compared to, I know some of our classes were getting bigger than we wanted them to be.
We have stabilized, and so we're comfortable with where we are right now. But the trend, anyway, seems to be that the other 2 elementary schools are either leveling off or declining in enrollment a little bit, and Southern keeps on growing. And at some point, that becomes, it necessitates a rebalancing. We're not there yet, and next year could be different, but if the trend of the last couple of years holds, we have to address that one way or another.
Thank you. Any additional questions or topics that anybody wants to discuss? No, everybody's good? Everybody had a good summer? We have our final referendum session at the middle school at 7 o'clock. We've done 6 or 8 road shows throughout and even before the school year ended. You'll see Dr. LaSousse and Peter, Mr. D'Aquila at some of the back-to-school nights as well as the PTO meeting. So if you're free and you want to stop by some of those, go ahead. Thank you. I'll try and make it to whichever ones I can. All right. I have no other comments, so we have our second opportunity for public commentary. If anything has piqued your interest, if you wouldn't mind stepping up to the mic. Anything at all. All right. Well, seeing none, I'd make a motion to adjourn the public session. We do not have an executive session, correct?
We do not.
Excellent. I make a motion to adjourn the public session. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? No. Thank you, everybody. Drive safe. Thank you for coming out.